Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of Drag Illustrated's The Racing Business with me, Jason Dukes. We have another great show for you this week. Want to thank you so much for being a part of the show. Also, want to thank our sponsors, the people that bring us here. Of course, Drag Illustrated, Racers Club. You can go get your Racers Club stuff at racers.club. You can support me at Captain's Chair Coaching. Quick PSA before we get started. I'll say some words. You guys do what you want to do with it. Physical, mammogram, colonoscopy, endoscopy, blood pressure test, diabetes test, PSA, sleep tests. In order to have a successful racing business and racing industry, we got to stay alive. So make sure that you take care of yourself. All right. Now that we got that out of the way, super excited for this episode. A person who really needs no introduction, probably for most of her life. I was introduced to her through a Disney movie when I was growing up, and then got to meet and work with her professionally as we grew up. So this week's guest on The Racing Business is Miss Courtney Enders.
Hello.
How are you?
Good. Sometimes I forget about that Disney movie. Pat of bricks.
Yeah, well, it's actually, I mean, we could probably start there. Like, I do that too, right? Like well, especially now, I'm 45, so certain things will happen, and it'll be like, wow, that was during the first half of my life, or like the first quarter of my life, and it's like, but some of that just seems like yesterday, or seems like another life, or like we're talking about someone completely different.
It does. And honestly, when we went through it, I was so young. I say this all the time now. A big part of why I try and slow down and absorb the things that I do is like, I didn't even stop to smell the roses when it was happening. It was like, oh, this is life. Here we go. We're going. And it's a Disney movie. And it's crazy to even think about. It feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah. No, it really does. Well, tell us about all the stuff happening in the Courtney Enders life of right now. And then after we do all that, and it, take as much time as you want to, but then we'll go and we'll start at the beginning and get all the way here.
Well, right now I just said to somebody over the weekend, I was complaining actually about how tired I was and how much I was sick of traveling and how I needed a weekend away from a racetrack. And then I said, this is everything I asked for and worked for and prayed for. And it gets to the point of, you got to, again, stop and smell the roses and say, it's tough. The week can't do it, but this is exactly what I worked for, what I dreamt up and what I'm doing. So it's kind of cool. I'm all over the map. If there's a racetrack that has some kind of active race, I'm either there or working actively virtually through Flow or some kind of business that I'm involved in, but I'm still traveling the series with my sister in Elite Motorsports and helping them out on a team management front. We've got, shout out Sarah Slaughter. She's heading up the PR now, and Scott Woody Woodruff is heading up the marketing. So I joke with them. I get to do the fun stuff. I get to update the stories and take the drivers where they need to through the weekend and, design hero cards and do credentials and things of that sort. So it's kind of nice. I get to check out during the day and be there in the moment while all of our cars are racing on the NHRA series, which is cool. And then my full-time gig with FloRacing. Joked yesterday in a meeting with my boss, Tim Truex, that my position, I got hired as a content creator, but now my position is just drag racing, because if it has to do with drag racing, it becomes my problem. So shout out Tim Truex for having me have 47 jobs in one, but I love it. I'm actually leaving tomorrow morning early for the PDRA, so I'm everywhere.
Yeah. So I look at your life, and I look at some of the titles that you have, and it's all just been like created. It's almost sort of like my life a little bit, where it's just like created titles, because it's like, well, I could sort of do it all or whatever. It's like what are those things like? What is life like that when you do sort of live this life of just created titles and created things and just sort of create wherever you go?
It's kind of crazy. Now it's good because I think I've done enough and I've had my hand in enough cookie jars to gain the respect of the things that I do when I'm doing them. But at the beginning, it was a struggle, because kicking it back to with Elite Motorsports in like 2013, 2014, 2015, before social media had a huge play on what was going on in the teams. It wasn't a full-time job. You had to figure out a real job and then be able to do that on the side. So I feel like I've kind of had to claw my way through as time progressed and changed to be able to have those roles. And they really were strictly made up at the beginning. And a lot of people thought I was just Erica's sister or, whatever I was doing out there on the road. So beginning was tough, but it's so weird because in the last 3 years, I guess I've been at Flo almost 3 years this June, which is crazy. It still seems new. Until then, I didn't really know where I belonged. I didn't really know my spot in it. I just knew that I was doing things behind the scenes. I knew they mattered. I knew when I wasn't there and I wasn't doing them, things were screwed up. But it didn't really show on paper, or it didn't show to anybody else what was going on. But in the last 2 or 3 years, just instantly that has changed. And it's been really cool to be on, I think, the downslide of all of that hard work.
Yeah. I'm in a similar situation in that, like, I mean, I don't know, I'm a business coach, career coach, like whatever it is that people say. And people will often ask me, they're like, well, what is exactly that you do? And it's like, well, it's hard to answer. I can give you results. Like I can tell you the results of my clients, but the what I do is sort of just like out there in the weeds sometimes. But I've followed you and seen that evolution and also just becoming comfortable in it too. Actually, you may have just answered this, but can you talk a little bit about becoming comfortable in it?
Yeah, it's tough. Like I said, you got to have thick skin for it, because especially in this wave of the internet and everybody's got something to say and everybody's got an opinion, it's really tough because like there's results and what you're doing, but you don't really know how to put that in like a bio or on paper. And so you've got to be confident in what you're doing enough to know that like it really doesn't make a crap what people think or what people say. And the people that you're helping with you, Wes Buck, and in our little world here, and with me, Erica, she took more offense to it than I did at the beginning of, what does Courtney do? Just travel around. And I know we see the results. And so I think the biggest thing there is that you've got to your give a crap kind of has to be a little bit busted. And it's a little bit sad because you get this scar tissue. And my dad and I were talking about this week. Through the years of drag racing, he apologizes all the time. Like, I'm so sorry for dumping you into this world. I'm so sorry for not having a clear path of what I wanted to do. But it's made me tough. And I've got this huge layer of scar tissue to where you just put your head down and grind. Actually, Corey McCallick from React 104 has a quote that he gave me, and it's on my chalkboard here, and I'm going to bleep it out, but it says, embrace the grind, lower your shoulder, and drive through that effer. That's what you've got to do. You've got to know your point of view and where you're headed and just put your shoulder down and grind. So if you're weak, it ain't for you.
Yeah. So let's go to the beginning and tell us where this whole thing started. I mean, besides just watching a Disney movie, like, give us your perspective. Like, where'd this all begin?
Began with my dad, for sure. He was very, very passionate about drag racing. We always had project cars in the garage. Trucks, actually, he's a big truck guy, which is why I'm a truck gal. I like Broncos. I like the older trucks. But he had a passion for it, and he never had any kind of inkling to do it professionally. He wasn't chasing an NHRA dream, but we had cars and trucks that we would take out to Houston Raceway Park, RIP, HRP. And Wednesday nights, Thursday nights, Saturday nights, Sunday, we go to Navasota Raceway. We go out to Sealy. And it was just something we did as a family. And even as kids before Junior Dragsters, we didn't, there wasn't any kind of urge for us to do it yet because that space in the sport didn't exist. But then Junior Dragsters came about in 1992 when my sister was 8 or 9 years old. I believe she was 9. And she wanted to do it immediately. And so my dad's passion and projects and talents shifted over to that. And he helped John Harden, who was our chassis builder, build one of the first Junior Dragsters in the country. And through building that, I just remember in the shop, there would just be literally just like parts everywhere. And it's so cool to know what it's become to this day. If they measure it out, built, did things for safety, engineered this, and helped the NHRA. There was a lot of people across the country that did this, the firsts, but in my world, my dad was one of the major players in that and helped to create what the Junior Dragster program is. And I think that that's what makes my sister's story on track really, really cool, is that it came literally from the ground up and we built that deal. But I wanted to do whatever my sister did. So she raced, I sat on her wing. Like everybody gives me crap for sitting on her door. I've been sitting on her wing since she was 9 years old. And it's just something we did together. And I followed in her footsteps, ran the Junior Dragster stuff. And towards the end of our Junior Dragster career, we were with Pennzoil and Gum Out. And Disney came to one of our agents, Darlena Campbell, actually, and said, we want to do something. We don't know what it is. My dad, being the mastermind that he is, kind of snowballed that into what it was. And the Disney movie was a massive success, still is. Hector Arana Jr. actually came up to me at the racetrack this weekend. He's like, gosh dang it, my daughter will not stop watching that movie, right? Like she's quoting it like crazy. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. But it's so cool to see that it's still prevalent in our industry and helping young kids and young girls want to do it. But then we ran Sportsman stuff. I kind of faded away through the end of high school and through college. I played volleyball.
Actually, can I ask you? Can I slow it down and ask you a bunch of questions about that time period? The other thing too, I almost like Hector Arana Jr.'s kids. I have a confession to make. The other, I guess, leading up to the Pro Superstar Shootout, I was watching the interview that you did with Antron Brown, and I was listening to, like, you were like, oh, and that's when I start. You said, and that's when I started following you, Antron. I'm like, God, that's like 10 years after I started following him. And I'm thinking, I'm like, well, wait, when did the Junior Dragster movie come out? And it's like, I was in like late high school, early college. And it's like, and I literally was like a little girl and like watched the dang movie like every day. And it's like, that's not that it's weird. It's just that that's how, like, there wasn't much good content in any sort of mainstream thing. It's like everyone just ate it up. I was embarrassed when I realized, like, man, wait, I was in high school or college when that came out. Like, you know.
Yeah, I'm not far behind you. We filmed it my freshman year of high school, so that checks out.
Yeah. Well, so you know, during that time period, I know you looked up to your sister. Like, I'm curious of who she looked up to, but then also just, you know, growing up as I'll just say like a little girl or whatever. Like, what was it like being that interested and that being the thing that you're interested compared to like what your other friends were interested or whatnot?
Yeah, Erica actually, she really looked up to obviously Shirley, but Bob Glidden was always Erica's guy. And you know, she wanted to race nitro because not a lot of women had, and Shirley did. And I don't think pro stock was really even a goal yet because girls just didn't do it. But Bob Glidden was always a big thing for Erica. But we collectively, we loved Shirley Anderson growing up. And so we would stand in line when she was running the Jolly Rancher car and wait for her autograph. And Angel was like oh my gosh, I still fangirl out if I get a text from her. I'm like, oh my gosh, she knows who I am. It's so weird. But it wasn't anything weird for us, I think, because with my dad doing it constantly and always having the garage open, like in the trailer parked in front of the house, like everybody knew that's what we were into. And so even if it was a little bit weird, people gravitated towards it. And I think my dad, he jokes about, I did it to keep the boys close and wanted to be in the garage with me. And they would come over and they would work on the car with him instead of hanging out with us. And it was cool. And even our girlfriends would come to the racetrack with us and do it. We're very blessed in a sense to where we didn't get any kind of hazing or anything like that because it's just what we did. And my dad, again, mentally was a great mental coach growing up. Just, you know, you like what you like and it is what it is. And you boast confidence. Nobody's going to say anything. And so it really wasn't weird, which is weird.
It's weird that it wasn't weird. Yeah.
It is weird.
Awesome. So you said, and then it moved on to Sportsman stuff.
Yeah. And my sister and dad did Super Comp and Super Gas together. We actually traveled the country. I was still too young to do it, running juniors. With Steve Torrance and his dad, which is why we're so close with them, and go to, you know, St. Louis. It was a big deal to go to the national there and get enough grade points to do it. And my 16th birthday, I ended up running a 69 Camaro in Super Street. I think it's back there somewhere. Oh yeah, she's right there. Running the 69 Camaro at Super Street. And I progressed into Super Comp, did a little bit of Top Dragster. And then I found my love in a door car and Stock Eliminator and Super Stock. And I ran a 4-speed in Nova in both of those classes and just loved it, but never really had the oomph to, this is what I want to do for a living. It was just something cool that we did. I really loved volleyball. I was a gymnast my whole life, ran hurdles. I was a physical athlete in school, whereas, my sister played sports and stuff, but she was training on the practice tree, and her craft was drag racing, and my craft was volleyball and hurdles. So that's kind of after I was running those Sportsman classes just for fun, and Erica decided to take it so heavy, I kind of deterred a little. My dad gave me some really good advice and said, you can race when you're old. Look who races. You got a bunch of old guys racing. You cannot play volleyball forever. You cannot coach volleyball forever. You can't run hurdles forever, which now I went on a run this morning, and good God, I can barely jog. So I'm glad that he gave me that advice, and I got to live out that passion and let it kind of run its course. And I'm thankful that I was able to come back into a space to where now I'm doing it again.
Yeah. Yeah. What sort of pressure was on you though to choose racing as a career, like especially once the movie comes out? I mean, I remember, like I said, told you my experience with the movie, but probably a lot of people who watched the movie were like either Team Erica or Team Courtney, and oh, we're gonna root on forever. What sort of pressure did that put on you to choose racing?
Again, I'm going to boast my parents here because they do what you want. There was no pressure within our own home or anything. It was the opportunities here. You want to do it. If not, go chase your dreams. And so within our own household, had the confidence to not do that. But I would be lying if I said that there wasn't some outside of it, even to this day. The other day at Chicago, somebody came up and asked me and was like, why'd you give up? Why'd you quit? And it's like, there's a lot to it, and it shouldn't bother me anymore, but it does, because there's a space in my life that I had and I owned and I left the public eye for, that a lot of people don't know about, and that's fine. I don't care, but it looks, because it's a gaping hole. And my sister continued, and she's done all these things, and 6-time world champion and everything, that if I didn't quit, that I could have been as good as my sister. And it kind of makes Erica and I laugh, because Erica loves her life. She's living out her dream, but her life is not her own, right? There is sacrifice with choosing something like this. Like, she's 40 years old. She's probably not going to have kids, like not getting married. And you choose this life. And I was a little bit more open and blessed and free to be able to experience a lot of those things that she doesn't. And so when people say that, like, are you jealous of your sister? We just get a chuckle out of it, because I think she would be okay with me saying this, but I think she's jealous of my choices sometimes in the real life standpoint. But there is, and it's a little bit crazy to think that people still, to me, maybe it's imposter syndrome or something, but that they still hinge and hang on that fact of like, well, where'd she go? What'd she do? And now she's just standing on the starting line. And that's where that confidence we talked about earlier of knowing what I do for the program matters and helps it to succeed.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about some of the some of the lessons and just what you learned in choosing the volleyball and the track, and what you got out of that.
I think, again, main thing was just that it will be there. If there's a true passion for it, and if it's what we're supposed to do, and maybe it's because my sister continued to do it. I don't know if she didn't continue that I would have had the urge to want to be a part of, somebody else's program. I don't know how that would have ended up, where that would have landed me. But I think that that's what makes us so cool, is because even though we separated a little in our careers, it always was us doing this together. And so the lesson that I learned was just that it'll work out. And I don't know if people are watching this are religious or not, but that's where I hang my hat, and where as long as you follow what you feel like is supposed to be what you're doing at that moment, it'll work itself out. And we don't always know what's best for that. And so sometimes we try and force things, and they end up not being that way, and kind of breaking your heart. And I just, through the years, much better than my sister, have learned to just let the cards fall where they may. And it's been a little bit of a freeing experience. But I feel like I've gotten to live 48 lives, right? Like, I played club volleyball for 15 years. I coached freshman volleyball for 5 years. Absolutely loved it. Lived in California. I chased Sportsman stuff when I was hanging out with Eddie Fishley and Sean Langdon, and then now doing this elite thing with my sister, and now the flow thing. And it's wild to me that at 37 years old, I've gotten to check off so many things.
Yeah. So, and we were talking about the we got up to your sportsman thing. Like, where did the story go after that?
That's where I kind of I moved to California. I did the most cliche thing ever, and I, at the not will of my dad, bless his heart, he tried to stop me. Got in my car, packed up my stuff when I
Dad, you don't know me.
Yeah, oh my God, what an idiot I am, right? No, but it was a different time, and I was 20 years old and I had a job I lined up. I did all the things that he taught me how to do. Like, you've got to plan ahead, line up a job, have a place to live, have a group of friends that are going to support you. And so I presented this to him, like, here's what I'm going to do. And they knew. My mom jokes, if I could have had a checking account and a credit card at 18 months, I'd have been on the road, yada, yada. I've always been that way. And so I literally packed up my little jelly bean car and drove to California and had the best time. Worked at Sparco, selling fire suits. Got to race super comp on the road. And so that was kind of my freedom deal there when I got to choose. I also feel, you asked about pressure. A lot of people, I think, if I would have chosen that route of going drag racing, that it was because Erica did or because my family made it. And even though I knew I'd probably end up back there, I feel like I had to decide that for myself. As a stubborn 19, 20-year-old gal. And California was still kicking back in the day. Gas wasn't $9 a gallon and it was reasonable. And I wanted to live on the beach. And so I did. And I went there and played sand volleyball 3 days a week, worked at Sparco, rode a beach cruiser to the beach, lived in Costa Mesa, and it was fantastic. And then when I turned about 23, 24 years old, it's like, what are you going to do with your life? And I moved back home and started to get back into the industry, and never really left it, but started to really think about what are my talents and where do I fit in the picture if Erica's really going to take this all the way, because she hadn't won a race yet. We weren't with Elite. And so, yeah, it was kind of just one of those things where I kind of knew where I would be, but I had to go be an idiot for a little while.
Well, no, I mean,
it was fun.
I live at the beach now, so I hope I hope I don't grow up.
I'm kind of sad I did. No, Texas was always my home. I was always coming home.
Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned that, the Erica hadn't won a race yet. Like, for someone like me that followed the whole journey, literally ever since the Disney movie, like, I remember the Cagnazzi days, literally all the different days, the ups and the downs and the below downs and the ups and the downs and the below downs and the building back up. Like, what was that like? What was that like for you? What was that like for the family? What are some of the lessons that you learned there?
It was wild. I think tenacity. Erica said this last year. We pick like a word of the year at New Year's, and then kind of recap it at the end. And last year's word was tenacity. And I feel like the whole career has been tenacity, because there's been so many times where it had just been easier to jump off, for her especially. People telling her it's not going to work, sponsors telling her no, her not qualifying for a race for like 6 years straight, not winning a round for 10 years. But again, when cards are supposed to fall where they do, when I moved home from California, I got a job at Hennessy Performance in Sealy, Texas. And in the industry, but not. And that was kind of my way of like, I'm choosing to, but not choosing to. And one of my clients, Gaston Kirby, owns Zaza Energy. And he just found out who I was during the build. I would talk to him once a week and loved it. Came out to the Houston race. Long story short, he ended up sponsoring my sister's car in 2012. And so that was kind of my way back in of like, hey, I can help build relationships with this program. Like, I'm not going to go be a pro stock world champion like she was, but I can have a place here. And that was my first light bulb back to being like, maybe I can be a part of her program instead of just flying in, getting off work Friday, flying in Saturday, being on the red eye home Sunday and going back to work Monday. That was horrible. And so I kind of, when he sponsored her and then she won her first race with his name on the side of her car, I literally went back to Hennessy that next week and was like, I'm done. And I went and worked for Zaza, actually. And so I was handling their sports marketing program. They were into a bunch of other stuff, some road rally stuff. And that was my window back into her program, to where I felt like I was actually helping and not just being the fly-in sister, if you will. And so that was a big lesson to me, again, of just letting things fall. Me using my talents in my own world with Hennessy that had nothing to do with NHRA drag racing, but still motorsports, and it kind of weaving itself back in there. But it was tough. Even after that, we won that race, won a couple that year, and went again without anything. And the struggle of when Erica got the opportunity to come race for Elite Motorsports, she's a very loyal person, and she really, really, really struggled. We had many conversations of, well, I can't leave this program and move to the next just because this one has ceilinged or whatnot. And not that the Cagnazzi deal was a bad deal, but I mean, it just sometimes things run its course, and Dave Connolly came on board and was going to be their driver and their A-team deal. And it just, same thing. You just got to trust your gut and know you're in the right place at the right time. And I helped Erica mentally transition to what we now have with Elite Motorsports. And that's when I knew, like, oh, I'm back. I'm screwed. I'm a lifer.
Yeah. Well, and you talk about doing all this stuff, and I guess a lot of people don't. There are some industries where it's like, oh, you can leave one place and go to another place, and you're literally never going to see the other people again. Like, we're talking about a whole bunch of people that you literally grew up with and are going to see every weekend. Like, can you just talk a little bit about that, of like making decisions, moving places, working in an industry where it's like you can't really burn. I mean, not that we're burning bridge people, but it's like you can't really burn any bridges because you're there, but you also have to do what's best for you a lot of the time.
Yeah, there's a fine line with that for sure. I face that every single day when I'm trying to balance this elite flow thing. But you have to look out for yourself, because at the end of the day, like some situations that happened with her at Cagnazzi, it was a good deal, but not everybody was always looking out for her interests. And it was starting to become more aware that was going to be happening. And it worked out for them too, because Dave Connolly ran for them, won a bunch of races. It was a great competitor for Erica on the elite side, and it helped drive it. But I think you've got to figure out that very fine line of being selfish and being just looking out for number one, and some people may take that as selfish, whereas, in your heart, your intention wasn't to screw anybody over by any means. And just looking out for yourself. But that's what is so cool about what we have now at Elite Motorsports, because after that jump, we've never had to do that again. It's been all elite all day since 2014. And Richard's the same as Erica in that loyalty sense. And it's family based with Royce Lee and Casey and Chase and Robert and my sister and I. Like, even from day one, Richard said, I don't know what the bleep you're going to do here, but she says you got to come. So, like, whatever, family. And that's just, we knew that it was the correct environment for that. And it's been really nice to not have to jump any kind of ship and play that little line.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Disney, like it sounds like we've told a story where it's like, oh, and the Disney ending is elite. But even like once you got to elite, it wasn't like, oh, and it just went straight up from there. Like there was ups and downs and ups and all those things there. Tell us a little bit about the elite journey, like once you guys got there.
Yeah, that was wild, because it did ignite instantly. We went in 2013. Erica had tested with them, and Ricky Jones was driving the Elite Motorsports house car. He won Pomona, the World Finals, his first one. It was like super emotional. Then it's like, oh, maybe they're going to pick him to be the driver. But Ricky, like myself, also had other areas of the industry and of the sport and of the team that he wanted to put his talents to, and ended up becoming Erica's crew chief. And we won that first championship. Like, we went into 2014. I actually started working for them the third race of the year. I went to 2, and Richard's like, okay, I guess you're going to be here for now. So just come on, move to Oklahoma. And we were only going to go to 10 races. And by the end of those 10 races that we had said we were going to go to, we were leading the points. And I remember sitting there with them. I was still very timid with the Freemans in a room. I'm not anymore, but just like, what are we going to do? We don't have the money. We can't do it. But like, what if we never get this opportunity again to win a world championship? Richard's on the phone. If you've ever met Richard, I need a check. Calling everybody he knows. We're chasing a dream. I need a check. And it was insane to watch just the like literal local support of businesses that had nothing to gain in drag racing, that just said, we believe in your program and what you're doing. Go. We had like 40 sponsors that we had to thank every week, because everybody gave like $1,000, right? It was just so crazy. We end up winning the championship 14 and 15. like unreal. Then we jump ship from Chevy yet again. Go to the Dodge days. We call them
cool looking cars. Cool looking cars.
Not so cool on the results, but we call them the dog days. And unfortunately, just the support from manufacturer and the R&D and the parts are not there. And people want to call it, Chevy stock and whatnot. But there's a reason that it is the way that it is to keep the class competitive. And those were some dark days, because when you get on that high of a high and you win those 2 championships, Erica's making history. We have no turnaround on the crew, guys, just an incredible group of people who made this happen. We still have those same guys. And then you go down to not winning a single race. You go having a number 1 on your door to not finish it in the top 10. And that screwed up Erica's streak. Brittany Force this weekend didn't qualify. Screwed up a 180 race streak. We were walking to the media room and Erica said, I'd have a streak if it wasn't for 16 and 17. And it's like, those stick with you, but those are risks you got to take. It was a business move. And we came back to Chevy, took a year to recover, and came back and won again in 2019 and 20, and had a hard year off when Greg Anderson whooped up on us, and then 22 and 23. Yeah. So it's been crazy. It's just been like 2 on, 2 off, 2 on, 2 off, 2 off. But I tell Erica this all the time. She would win every race, win every championship if she could, hates losing, is to making her a better driver, a sore loser. And I love that about her, not to her opponents, internally with herself. But I tell her, like, you've got to have these ebbs and flows, or like, even we get sick of it. Not sick of it, but it just becomes expected and all of that. So I think that those valleys are absolutely necessary. And it sounds cliche, but even after last weekend, like, I love when we race like crap, because I know the next one, boom, we're going crazy on the starting line. It's just euphoric. It feels good. So they don't like that, but I do.
Well, and so then not necessarily the side things, but like, where did Flo come about in this deal for you, and what were some of the things that you went through in making that decision?
Flo fell in my lap, which is crazy. During COVID, I told Joe Costello this weekend. I feel like I've name dropped a lot. I told Joe Costello
your life is a name drop. It's like, oh, when I grew up with the Torrances.
But I'm standing on the starting line with Joe, and I'm like, we need a happy hour again. We used to have the WFO show happy hour, because during COVID, the only thing we could do was podcast. And we were so bored. And I feel like COVID, there's a lot of good, a lot of bad, but a lot of good that came out of our side of the world during COVID. Social media, it was there, but it became a necessity because it's the only thing you could do. Content creators, brilliantly talented people who would have never put themselves out there and created this. I mean, the internet is so talented. It's insane. But we just, to hang out with our friends, we would put up a StreamYard and party on the internet, right? Like, we didn't know if anybody was going to watch. We were like, we'll just have on famous guests. And that's where I got comfortable talking. I never would I have ever been in front of the camera, would have been on a podcast. Like, when Mountain Motor hired me, I said, absolutely no on-camera work. Like, it's not happening. COVID hit, and I found my place. And it's so crazy that a national, worldwide pandemic is what made me turn into what I am these days. But it's all that we could do. And so we gained these cool little clicks on the internet. And I started doing that. And then when COVID was kind of coming back out, NHRA, we just had those races in Indy. We had like 6 races in Indy with no fans. But the PDRA and the duck races, they were racing. And Flo needed people to do pit reporting. A lot of people weren't going anywhere because of vaccinations and things. And I was traveling, didn't care. And Jamie Howe, actually, who was with me at the Pro Superstar Shootout and who used to do the Fox stuff for NHRA, she suggested me to Flo. And she was like, yeah, I think she'd be great as a pit reporter. She called me and told me. And I'm like, no, that makes me like want to throw up even thinking about. Thought about it for a few days, and I'm like, man, I mean, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like, you'd screw up on the internet. Okay, I've done that before. And I went and did 1 race for them just as contract, and I loved it. Like, absolutely loved it. So I told them, sign me up for whatever through COVID, I'll do it. And that's where Wes Buck and I and Kingsridge kind of came to play. And we were doing a lot of content creating. I was doing a lot of on-camera stuff. And that fizzled its way through COVID too. We really struggled to keep that afloat. It was a great idea, just really, really bad timing. And so coming out of COVID, and I'm going back to doing my sister's stuff full time, struggling a little bit with, my identity. Where do I fit into the picture? My talents are leaning in a different way than what I'm doing with Elite, but not wanting to leave. And Tom Babaltz with Flo called me one day and was like, you may not want to do this, but there's a position open and I just cannot get you out of my head for it. Told him no. Read the requirements. I'm like, no, absolutely not. That's not me. And long story short, they persuaded me in a few ways, if not. But they were open to me still being myself and still living my life and supporting my sister. That was something that was huge. My time and my efforts full time go to Flo. That's my bread maker now. As I tell Richard, you don't pay me as much anymore. You don't get to tell me what to do. Flo pays me. So that's my number one. And I'll skip Erica's races to go handle my Flo stuff. But I needed them to know that my space in this sport and the personality and the person that they were hiring to do this, that's who I am. I can do this. This is what I do. But this is who I am. And they've been great. Like, they don't schedule me meetings on Fridays when there's an NHRA race. How messed up is that? My real job lets me go play. And so, 3 years, June 6th now will be 3 years with Flo. And it's insane what we've built. I came on as a content creator with pit reporting on the side. And now I'm putting on races. I'm mending relationships. I'm partner building. It is nuts.
Yeah. Well, so I know, but some of the people listening may not know, like, can you just go into a little bit more depth of like you said, the mending relationships, partner building, putting on races, like talk about all the stuff that you actually do.
Yeah. So Flo, is anybody watching this, Flo has struggled. We bought Speed Video is what became Flo Drag Racing, and FloRacing is huge. All other kinds of motorsports, there's no issues with that. But Flo Drag Racing was really new. And we took a little bit of a broken product and trying to make it better and doing things like NMCA, ducks races, PDRA, started pretty small. And through the last few years, I feel like Flo's prerogative, and they had told me this, like, we need to make a name for ourselves. We have to mend the issues that we've had before, whether it be the spinning circle of death that I hear about, the lack of content on social media. We would get lost in the FloRacing sphere because there's just so much of it. We have like an eighth of the amount of races that they have. So when I first came on board, it was, how do we, I don't want to say fix, because I don't think the product was broken. I just don't think it was right for drag racing yet. But how do we mend and mold drag racing audience into accepting Flo as a different kind of deal and rebrand it almost without rebranding it, and create something bigger than just live streaming an event. We wanted more than just a couple of cameras showing what was going on. So through the last 3 years of me being here, and I know Tom's done a lot more before I got here because he came from Speed Video days, but I mean, we've done so much. We've got live timing up now. We've got drones. We've got jibs. We have talent. We have content that we're putting on the stream to fill it. Like, this is going to be going on the stream of the next Flo race as well, because I talk about it. So FloRacing. But
FloRacing.
Yeah, we love it. But I mean, we not only building those things, but fixing things that have been going wrong. Like, when you watch it as a viewer, what pisses you off, because we get a lot of hate mail of things. But this live streaming game is really, really hard, but we are working on making it a show over a stream. And I think people struggle to understand that. Like, there's a ton of people who can do the streams. If you watched the Halsey race at Cecil County last weekend, that was a stream. NHRA TV, they didn't have any interest in coming there, which is fine. It's a divisional event. Just set up a couple of cameras and be able to watch and listen to the race. We want to do more than that. We created our own social media channel, Flo Drag Racing. That was a fight to get outside of the FloRacing umbrella to have our own. We don't have enough to probably monetize and do the things we should be doing, but we're working on it, and we're building characters within the PDRA and things of that sort that never get any kind of mainstream attention. You just see their cars on the stream and that's it. So it was my dream when I came in, and I told them when they hired me, like, I don't see this just being how many streams can we do a weekend? You know, how many different partners can we bring on board? But how can we work with these partners to make this like a show? Like you watch NFL now, we're on Prime TV, we're on Peacock. Like these are not just primetime TV shows anymore. The world is going streaming, and we've got to figure out how to make a show out of a stream. And so a very long answer because I'm very passionate about what we're doing at Flo. But I think you saw the real first big aha moment with last year's World Series of Pro Mod and this year's Pro Superstar Shootout of what we're really reaching for in that sense. Now it takes dollar bills. So we got to fluff our partners in that sense and make sure people are watching drag racing and sharing this content. But I think we've shown what we can do, and we'll fall on our face a few times like we did at World Series of Pro Mod this year. But from that, we fixed some things. I told Wes, you were a martyr. I know you didn't sign up to be a martyr, but you were. We got new equipment, we got new people, and we move on. So mending the community to know that drag racing is being fought for at Flo.
Yeah. What's it like to see some of the things that you guys invented or I guess brought to the market? Like, what is it like to see some of that stuff not only just being embraced by the viewers, but also being embraced by the other streamers or the other live broadcasters that are doing it almost like the Flo way or like the Courtney way now?
I love it. I've never been more proud of anything than the work that we did for the Pro Superstar Shootout. We had meetings upon meetings, and dealing with Wes's schedule, like we would have a meeting about a meeting, but we prepared for every little thing. We wanted to work out every little detail of how to make this. And so the content series that we put into the stream, yes, we used it for social monetization and things of that sort to be able to fund these big ideas that we're having. But watching the full product of when a car oils down the track, or when we've got a few minutes, boom, goes to a John Force interview, or boom, goes to me doing cribs with Antron Brown. That's a show. That's how you get people to not tune off of this thing. But it also educating these people about the personalities of the race, the Antrons and the John Forces we know. But once we start taking these into the other ones where we don't, you're opening up an audience to a whole new brand of superstar. And I think that watching what we did at the pro race, knowing that we're going to start implementing that stuff to our other series, I have never been more proud, because I'm a fan of NHRA drag racing. And so the people who were the stars of the Pro Superstar Shootout, I'm watching this on the big screen and I'm going, that's me. That's me cooking with Austin Prock. Like that's me walking through John Force's shop. And it just was so weird for me. So on a personal sense, it was like, finally, like I'm getting to be the guy for something, which some people don't need, but I do. But it's so prideful for me, because we go back to the NHRA, we do this pro race, then we start having our preseason calls for the NHRA, and they congratulated us on this call when everybody thought we were going to get him hawed. We were going to get blackballed from the NHRA, and anybody who participated and made this Pro Superstar Shootout a success was going to be looked down upon from the NHRA. We were prepared for that. We get on this call and they say, we see you. We watched it. It was amazing. The content front on our content call, they said, we have to do more for our drivers. You guys did a phenomenal job giving deliverables to teams to share. A race was not promoted like that ever in drag racing, I don't think, because Wes Buck's team at Drag Illustrated and us at Flo, we tooled up the teams. You can't make them do the work. You got to, here's a dish, eat it. So the NHRA noticed that, and it was little things like that to where I'm starting to see them on the NHRA shows where they didn't need us to do it. They knew what to do, but what they had wasn't broken. And so why go out, hire new people? Why take risks? Why do these things when the people were watching the NHRA anyway? And so I think a misconception is people thought we were trying to kick them to the curb or move them out of the way. But Richard, Chad, Woody, everybody, Wes, we just wanted to move the whole thing together. And I think we did that. And that's the biggest thing for me. And I still, the background on my computer is the winner's circle picture from that of Erica winning. So personally, and I have my Flo microphone in my hand while I'm like smiling, and it was just a mesh of so much pride. It was the coolest day ever.
Yeah. Well, before I was going to say, before I ask another question, here is the other question that I'm going to ask. Like, just rant on whatever else you're passionate about.
Golly. I mean, that right there, that the pro thing, like I said, that was sadly my work, but that was one of I would have done everything I did without a paycheck for that. I feel like we went out of our scope for it anyway, but as I'm literally looking behind the screen of all the people smiling, all that, like drag racing is what I love. And so being able to go to work every day and write about drag racing or do graphics with drag racing when I get bogged down, I think that that's really cool. But other than that, man, if we're just being random, I love watching football. I like to work out. Like
You're not a Cowboys fan, are you?
Hell no.
Oh,
no. I'm from Houston, so that is illegal. And second off, my family's from Pittsburgh, so black and yellow.
Yeah. Okay. There we go.
And I think it's going to be an interesting year in that. But the other day when I wasn't racing, I had the weekend off. It's Mother's Day. I'm like, what is there to do on TV? There was no football for me to watch, so I had to watch basketball.
Yeah.
I get lost without it, but I'm just like over here waiting for football season again. So that's the only other thing I have time to be passionate about, I guess. My dog's pretty cool.
Oh, doggies. All right, well, let's get to the last segment here. Courtney Enders, are you ready to put up your dukes?
They stay up. Let's go.
All right, cool. 13 questions, 1 minute answers. First question, what is the strength of Courtney Enders?
Oh, my mind, I think. Where I struggle emotionally or physically, I can mind screw myself into doing anything.
Biggest weakness?
My mind, is that fair? No. Probably the same thing. My imposter syndrome, insecurity sometimes in what I do.
Biggest opportunity?
My life. Gosh, I'm very blessed to be able to say that my whole life has been full of them, and I know people have to fight for them, and I've fought, but man, there's been so many doors that are easy to knock on. So maybe that's a dad thing, maybe that's an Erica thing, but my life.
Biggest threat?
Biggest threat. I'm gonna be cliche in my mind too. I'm telling you, some guy get the imposter syndrome and think up a big dream and then think, no, what will they think? And you can't do it and you don't have time and all of that. So yeah, same.
Most overrated and underrated part about being Courtney Enders?
Yeah, the most overrated part is all of the traveling and all of the things. I love what I do, but good Lord, it takes a lot out of your guts, your brain, your heart, your life. My personal life is slim because of it. So overrated is what it takes to do it. Underrated part, I think the beginning half, the clawing up to where I'm at now. I get to be on all these cool podcasts and John Force interviews and stuff. But I think how I got here is wildly underrated and underviewed.
What's the last thing that you have to say for the younger generation, the people coming up behind you?
They have it more difficult than we did because people would have to tell us no to our faces or tell us that we weren't good enough to our faces. And there's so many different avenues that people can tell you negative things these days. And so I think that got to put your blinders up and just ignore it and stay true to whatever road you're trying to get. Because man, it's tough out there. Like I'm a grown ass adult with thick skin and I can't get on the internet this week because of some things my sister said on the PA last week. So just put your blinders on.
How about for the older generation, the guys that went before us?
Thanks. I don't know if that was the question, but in their own way, they had to pave it. And like Miranda Lambert says, the keepers of the flame and just that, especially in our sense with Erica and I, with like Shirley and Bob and Shelly and Angel, like all we can do is try and make them proud and keep the flame going for what they did. So thanks.
How about for your peers?
Watch.
Cool. And last question is what's your ask? Like what's your personal and business ask for the people listening? Like how can we support you?
I think I touched on it a little with the flow stuff. And again, I know it's my job and it's what I do, but it's my guts. And so I put everything into everything that I do. And I think that even just giving things a chance, you know, things are pretty rough. Like I said, people and what they say, and the internet is as strong-willed as we can be. It's going to be there. But with this professionally, with this flow thing, just have an open mind and watch what we're doing and appreciate the fight that we go through every day to bring the drag racing community a good product. I want to make stars of people. I want to keep people engaged. And if I can't be a 6-time world champion on the racetrack, I'm going to sure shine some lights on some no-time world champions until they are. So just give us a chance, keep an open mind, and support the industry in whatever it may be, watching these podcasts, sharing these podcasts, buying the products of people who support it, keeping the stream on in the background when you go to take the dog on a walk. It all matters.
Yeah. Well, Courtney, thank you for all your contributions. Thank you for finding your way in being the person that you are. So just thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing me on. I watch your show every week, and so I was like, "Ooh, it's my turn."
It's your turn. It was gonna be your turn sooner or later. Like you said, we're you know, the holdup, if anything, was just trying to get stories out of some of the people that we haven't heard from.
Oh, and I love it. You've had some people on there that we support at Flow that I support personally, and so I love it. And everybody's got a different side of it, and that's what I like about this show. Is it's not just the racetrack. I preach that. Like, you can go out there and win, but there's so much more to the whole space and the business.
Yeah, the business. Well, thank you so much for joining us this week. And thank you guys for joining again for another episode of Drag Illustrated's The Racing Business. We will see you next week. Keep following, as Courtney said, like, subscribe, share, all the different things, and let's keep this sport going. Love you guys, and we'll see you next week.